Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space, where I take stories from across the internet and read them for your entertainment. This particular story is called The Human Archive, written by Perilous Platypus. I miss them. It's a small treason to say it, but I say it nonetheless, in the quiet of this journal. Forgive me, dear reader. If there should ever be such a thing, I cannot help myself. So I say it again. I miss them. Humans. In the great effort to catalogue all sentient species, alive and extinct, there exists an elaborate taxonomy, many categories and words to describe those categories, ways to place each species neatly into hierarchy so that they may be safely and abstractly understood. Humans were the great disruptor of this delicate lattice, piercing through its feeble binaries with ease. For a binary to operate, its denizens must exist on a spectrum. Often, humans decline to participate in this spectrum, opting for an exotic departure from generally accepted and vigorously articulated norms. I must admit to a profound and deep satisfaction each time I trundle up to the dusty institutions, category deviation form in hand. Oh, how they howled at my presumption, layers upon layers of bureaucracy insisting that reality might be otherwise, blustering and insisting and demands for additional information. But they succumbed, as even the most hardened bureaucrat must do when the truth is inescapable, and when the initial change is processed, the subsequent become all the more easy. Yes, even they came to accept humanity's many eccentricities. My arrival greeted with no more than a, "Oh, them again." How can you not love them? Easily, I suppose. For many traffic in the narrow and the clarity it brings. They are at the most ease when nothing is beyond what they already know. Not me. Never me. So you must forgive me when I say I break at the thought of the spectrum humanity did not escape, the one it most decidedly is on the wrong side of. It is the most harsh binary, the harshest. There are those who are active, and then those who are not. Humanity is inactive. Inactive. Gone. Never to be resurrected, for there is no intervention when a species self-terminates. They are gone because they could not be trusted with themselves, and we cannot disrupt the logic of that reality. For if they could not tend to themselves, how could they coexist with us? I disagree with that bitter line. I hate it with my being, but I am an archivist, reader, and the galaxy cares not for my preferences. But I can tell you of them. Can I write a work here? In this quiet corner, will you allow me the small treason, and not condemn me for it? I beg you, reader unknown, let me reveal all that I've gleaned. This is my masterwork, my greatest feat. This is the Human Archives. As is often the case, humanity was discovered by their electromagnetic emissions. It's a slow process, moving between astral bodies at the speed of light, but it offers a consistency that allows for eventual awareness. Of course, while this might be the most typical means of discovery, humanity elected to exceed all prior benchmarks with their approach to the topic. They were noisy, reader. They began to speak one day, and they simply did not stop. The volume of the content, the range of the content, as if every member of the species had decided the entire galaxy might wish to hear of their goings-on, and proceeded to ensure the whole of it would be made available. As you might imagine, it created an intense fascination with humans almost immediately. As a rule, species transmissions tend to be a highly regulated and targeted affair, particularly broadcasts. The harsh logic of game theory prescribes the path. Why announce your awareness to the galaxy unknown? Far better to operate with care, particularly when a species does not yet know about the generally peaceable nature of the realms beyond their own. Not so for humanity. Not so. A generous trickle quickly became a great torrent. There appeared to be no effort to edit the mass, simply a desire to declare, regardless of whom might hear. Thoughtful exposition at times, but far more often a great cauldron of boiling nonsense, bubbling and spewing forth with a zest only a human could conjure. By volume, human transmissions exceed the collective total by a combined 98,571 species. Author aside, Another curiosity is humanity's decision to include cultural artifacts, music, speeches, videos, and even the government authorized entreaties, as if to say, you cannot understand us unless you know us. Truly astounding. This was crashed over the galactic span society, drowning all else out. All eyes, stalks, sensory rays, and telepathic waves tuned in. It is difficult to adequately describe it, reader, save to say that humanity spoke and all of us listened. And it is amidst this backdrop that the effort of first contact began. A complex, multi-layered thing was in the galactic span, one dominated by protocol and care, both to preserve the galactic span and the contactees themselves. History is replete with introductions gone wrong, causing a devastating and unintended collapse. I cannot describe the enthusiasm at the prospect of contact, or the span desired to welcome them, in the real sense, not just become acquainted with the ghosts of their emissions. How we had dreamed of our reception, how eagerly we waited the introduction of these strange and quixotic creatures to the galactic community. The process began. Observation. One does not make contact unless one knows the present circumstances of a species. In the case of humanity, long light years separated us from them, light years that contained knowledge that might be tapped to fully understand the journey into the future of humanity's present. Night skimmers were commissioned and deployed. But what a glorious day! As lead archivist, I was granted the honor of observation, a memory only tainted by the knowledge of what occurred after. But in that moment, anticipation. Humanity, the prolific creatures they were, provided ample emissions, trails to follow, and skimmers traveled in force along them. The process was well established, but modified due to the heightened public interest. Rather than 1 year skipper, many skippers dipped into real space every half-light year to gather a more complete and immediate compilation. Each relay spurred a near-galactic riot as the insatiable demand for human content devoured the public consciousness. A great galactic distraction as the span gorged itself. Eventually, skimmer days were implemented, allowing non-essential personnel to orient their time to human content consumption when a new relay was received. It was an odd thing to get a full blast of a species' culture and see it evolve in leaps and bounds. Early human emissions, already wildly eccentric and exuberant by galactic standards, was but a candle to what followed. I find it hard to grasp how a simple radio show might evolve into the reality television of the early 2000s and onto the virtual lifescapes of the 2100s. But such is the nature of humanity. Always evolving, often with tinged ismanic insanity. Such was the way with humanity, always keeping one-on-one supporting appendages. We had such hope for them. They pass so many filters that stand in the way to finding the galactic community. So very, very many. Eradication, weapons, interconnection, artificial sentience. As the skimmers traveled along, the galaxy held its collective breath, terrified that humanity might succumb. It is difficult to imagine how they did it. Being individualistic, the inherent conflict between selves is a difficult challenge in any circumstance, and humanity's unique composition made it exceedingly unlikely they would pass the eradication age, much less the interconnection age. Each human, a luminous creature in their own right, capable of great achievement or great evil, billions of individual parts, somehow advanced the collective whole. By every known test, humanity was an outlier in individualism. It seemed improbable that they should exist at all, impossible that they should come so far. But they met each test and moved beyond. Somehow thrived in the challenge, their creativity exploded outwards. But they burned so hard. A neutron star, their society lurching from one filter to the next, eradication, interconnection, and artificial sentience in 100 years. Too far, too fast, my friends. Please, slow down. Onward they marched, and onward we gathered. The skimmers moved ever closer to the source of the signals, deep into the beginnings of post-scarcity, the great killer of ambition. Yet, even as they unlocked more, they seemed to only desire more. They expanded to fill every crevice of potential, building outwards in finite dimensions. I know you feel as I do, dear reader. How could you not? You waited on each relay just as I did, marveling at the sights and sounds, just as you held that breath, that the next relay would bring more of the same. I know how that breath left you when you saw the start of it, the fall. Did you weep, as I did? Did you hope that it might be arrested, that those seeds of destruction might find no purchase in the fertile soil of humanity's dynamism? I cannot help but lament. I cannot help but be treasonous. I cannot help but write it here, in these secret places of mine. I miss the humans. I miss them. End of story. Story number 2. Humanity always acted weird in interstellar conflicts, written by Zizix124. When humanity was admitted to the Galactic Council after many negotiations, no one could really classify them. They had a human ambassador, but like all humans, he behaved cautiously. Humanity silently voted for things they supported, abstained when it did not concern them, and communicated with no one. They did not forge alliances. They did not seek allies amongst other races. They merely represented their own interests in the Galactic Council. There were attempts at rapprochement by various races, but none were welcomed with open arms. At the same point, humans were merely tolerated. And there was one behavior that was particularly strange. Over the following centuries, humans observed from a distance and waited, and then, when wars broke out between races, they were there, not as a warning party, but simply as observers. They watched the outcome of battles, and only then did they intervene. They came to the battlefields. Their ships landed in the ruins. Their soldiers poured onto the battlefield and began to care for the soldiers of both warring parties. They treated their wounds, even revived some soldiers, gave them food and a place where they could recover from their injuries. They did this emotionally and impartially, and then they disappeared as mysteriously as they had come. They did this in every conflict. Whenever a military confrontation between two alien races was imminent, one could expect human spaceships to be standing by nearby. And the strange thing is, no one did anything about it, or questioned it. It was simply accepted. Humans never gave any reason to be suspicious. And over the years, many races have become so accustomed to the presence of humans in these conflicts that none of them directly addressed the human soldiers about their activities. Not out of fear, but out of a strange reverence, as if any question could destroy something fragile. Even at meetings of the Galactic Council, people avoided addressing humans directly about what they were doing. And humans always participated with their familiar indifference, which the Council knew only too well. It took centuries before the newest minister of the Galactic Council raised the question that had preoccupied many races for ages. The hall was full. The chitin body armor rustled. Energy shields hummed quietly. Thought projections flickered in the air. In the midst of it all sat a human ambassador. The minister addressed the human ambassador directly and asked, "Humans, you help our wounded. You help our enemies. You help everyone and ask for nothing in return. No recognition, no blame, no alliance." A murmur went through the hall. "Why? Why do you do this?" The human ambassador, who did not speak unless addressed directly, rose, and all eyes turned to him eagerly. He paused for a moment before finding his words. "Because we have learned what remains after a war." The hall fell silent. Then he continued. "We have fought wars, many, long, cruel, and we have often won them, sometimes lost. But no matter how they ended, in the end, the same things always remained. Injured people, traumatized people, starving people, and generations who inherited the hatred of their parents." He paused briefly. "If there is no one there to help after the fire, the next war begins with the last one left off." A murmur went through the council. Then he continued. "We do not intervene because we know that we cannot prevent violence as long as the others want it, but we can prevent it from becoming all that remains." Silence. Then he sat down again. As always, humanity left the hall without ceremony. But in the cycles that followed, interesting things happened. Some empires began to end their battles earlier. Others set up their own relief units, modeled on the human example. And some commanders hesitated to give the final order because they knew what would come next. Many wars were even ended directly with peace treaties, and humans remained what they had always been. No judges, no saviors, no heroes, just a race that had learned from its mistakes. End of story. I'd quickly like to thank our Tier 5 channel members, Casper Arnholtz, John Creighton, Manatharia, 050, Dragzoon WRE, and Elijah Silvercross. Thank you very much.